Hey, it's Friday, July 8th, and this is Ryan Morales' Friday Roundup. Today I have two amazing guests. We have Aramis Ayala, who is our candidate for Attorney General here in Florida, and I also have Danelle Dodge, who is running for Florida's Congressional District 8. Before I bring them on real quickly, I just want to remind all my candidates across the state from Florida here, the Democratic candidates, if you'd like to join me on the show, please get a hold of me, Ryan@moralesforflorida.com. I invite all of you to just come on. Let's talk about the issues and, let's introduce you to the folk out there. So real quickly, let's bring in the ladies. That's Aramis. And that's So, we got some cool stuff to talk about today. I know we've been having some crazy issues throughout the country that have been basically affecting all of us. And the most recent one was let's talk about what happened in July 4th over there in Highland Park, Illinois, where a gunman basically was able to sneak up on top of some buildings with high-powered weapons and started shooting. And I believe when you hear the sounds of the videos, he fired off at least 70, 80 rounds into the crowd of innocent people. And there was plenty of police officers in the area, plenty of good guys with guns, plenty of all this, and just terrifying scenes to see people fleeing. And I know how to us it even affected us over here later that evening. So we'll go into that in a moment. But Aramis just wanted to say hello and kind of get your feedback on, how crazy that was and what your thoughts were on 4th of July as soon as you all heard that happened.
I think that the interesting part of it is the time that it happened. At the time that we're supposed to feel free and we're supposed to be celebrating our independence, all we're doing is now hearing the stories of how we lack freedom. We lack because we're not safe. There's no freedom and safety. And, the biggest thing that I struggle with when you're dealing with the mass shootings is how people will either connect it to people with criminal history or mental health history. And neither one of them are accurate. People with mental health issues are more in danger, when it comes to violence. And if you look at the mass shootings, these aren't people who have criminal histories. These are people who have anger issues, have hateful issues, are dealing with, the trickle down rhetoric that we're hearing from the top. So what it is hate, what it is fear, and what it is the continuation of patriarchy and white supremacy in this country.
Well, I mean, it's also just a failure of the guys who are getting their pockets padded by the NRA of even wanting to do anything because it's money for them. It's just plain greed at this point. So, it's interesting how we got to deal with life nowadays. And Danielle, what's your thoughts on what occurred on 4th of July?
I agree with Aramis, and I believe that a lot of it has to do with just the propaganda. We're being fed this steady stream of propaganda through Fox News and Newsmax and all of these outlets, and even from people in Congress. I don't know if you saw what Marjorie Taylor Greene said about it and tried to imply that, it was a conspiracy so we could have more gun laws. I mean, that's outrageous and ridiculous. And we just have to stand stronger against the NRA and all of these politicians that are lining their pockets from the NRA and refuse to do anything, because there's a point where complacency becomes complicity.
I agree. It's real interesting because, as Attorney General and as a congressional person, the things that you can do or try to do are very different. So, Aramis, if something like this was to have occurred here, what do you think are some of the steps?
Danelle, you're there, right?
Yeah, I think he got frozen. You could probably go ahead and answer, and then maybe he'll come back in.
Or answering. But I don't know. Are we still on?
I don't know. It says it's still live on the camera. Just smile. I think he was asking what at the state level you could do if we had an incident like this.
Yeah, I think that it's important for when you're talking about the Attorney General and the authority that that person has. It's all part of a legislative agenda. And the key for this is for us to understand public safety is really at risk when we have guns and we're creating bigger issues with regard to guns and our safety. As Attorney General, I think I look at the federal issues. You know, you've got the Dickey Amendment, which limits research related to guns. We've got to do something about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the Lautenberg Act, you know, where as Attorney General, it's important for me to support the federal laws that limit guns in the hands of those who have domestic violent backgrounds, because we realize that the correlation is beginning to be even more clear when you're looking at mass shootings and the history that people have with domestic violence. So if we're going to do something, we can't just be responding just to the shootings. We have to get to the front side of it and be more proactive and deal with the hate that comes with it, deal with the domestic violence issues that come with it, all that happens, and begin to heal people so that, you know, we don't deal with the whole hurt people thing. We have a lot of brokenness, and unfortunately it's resulting in the death of lots of people.
Definitely. And also with the ATF and the laws that we have against, you know, them being able to use a computer system to track crime guns. I mean, that's insane. We even had the gun dealers request from the ATF to be able to do it in their own shops because everything was on paper. The floor was caving in of the ATF office because of all of the paper. I mean, it's insane in this time of digital everything that we would, you know, tie the hands of these people to track weapons that are used in a crime. And there was something else I was just thinking about.
You know, I think that we also have to be mindful of, you know, what policies we have in place to give people licenses. You know, once
Yes.
a person has I mean, it's even worse than driver's license because we don't do the checks that we need to. And let's be clear, we just need to ban the assault rifles and high power magazines. Like, there's no reason for personal use for that. And well, let me say this, there's no personal use that outweighs the safety that is being threatened as a result of it. So that's, as Attorney General, I will certainly be pushing legislation for that, but I also want to be able to respond to it in real time. And in real time, the Attorney General can start looking at some of the licensing and the sales of guns. I think we have to be able to reverse and increase our access to sue manufacturers and sellers for their liability. When people can escape liability, then you're missing accountability. Hi, Ryan.
Hi, thank you for keeping up the talk because I completely had a power shutdown over here. It was so interesting. So
give Danelle the credit for that because I was just staring and she was like, she's your co-host.
Oh my God. So thank you girls for keeping up the talk, but or ladies, sorry.
I was about to correct you on that.
I do apologize. I'm so used to talking to my little
Ryan,
ones.
it's not the time for any mansplain, coach, like all of that. And I know you better than that, but now, whew.
No, I did.
So,
I appreciate it.
thank you again for actually taking over because yeah, I don't know what happened. We just had a whole power flash over here and everything just shut down. I was like, oh wow.
We got
okay.
you.
Cool. All right. So where were we? So yeah, July 4th, Lake Eola. I mean, look, it affected us after the shooting everywhere, not just Lake Eola here in Orlando. What was that? Philadelphia and a couple other cities were having all these issues basically right after the shooting because everybody was on edge. Nobody felt safe. And, you know, to me, that sucks because now that's kind of seems to be the norm. It doesn't matter where you go. You could go to the movie theaters. You could go now to a parade. You could go now to a fireworks show, and it's not safe. So, you know, how do we get people to feel safe and not really feel like this is an ongoing war on them?
I think we have to get past the feelings. Like, it's not whether or not you feel safe, it's whether or not we are safe, right? Yes. I think people are voting their emotions, but we need to vote truth. And the reality is, even in my race, like in the state of Florida, we have had a lot of Republican rule. We've had people, you know, say they're going to do all of these things and they're committed to public safety, but they're saying it. When you look at the numbers, we're not. There's been higher violent crime since, you know, even in the most recent 4 years. So it's dangerous for us to say, oh, oh, well, do we feel safe? That is an important thing to do, but we can't lead with that. The reality is, are we safe? And as long as these gun laws continue on the books, as long as we are just freely letting people carry guns, and we're moving toward even more freedom in carrying guns, and we're not doing something about it, and we're not engaging in proactive measures, then I mean, that's exactly what public safety is not.
Correct.
Yes, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and the idea of constitutional carry here in Florida is extremely frightening and dangerous, and we need to make sure that, and hopefully when Aramis gets elected, that won't be a thing. But I can't imagine how are we supposed to feel safe or be safe when we don't know who is the good guy or the bad guy with a gun, when people can just walk around with an AR-15 strapped on their back at the Wawa. And, do we call the police? They say, oh, if you see something, say something. And you call the police and they're like, oh, no worries. They're allowed to carry an AR-15 around the Wawa. So, are we all just supposed to hide in our houses now? I don't know what we're supposed to do.
I think we have to be real mindful of our Constitution, right? Like, people are constantly harping upon the Second Amendment. There are two words in there that even if you believe, and it's called well-regulated. So yes, if you have this constitutional carry, then it should be based upon the Constitution, and the constitutional language says well-regulated, which means we need more regulations, not less.
Right. And we have the Supreme Court who's taking away states' rights when it comes to guns. If you look at New York, their 113-year-old law. And on the other hand, states' rights are more important to tell us what to do with our own bodies. And so their messaging or the way that they're ruling is juxtaposed to itself. And so it's all based on feelings and the way that they feel about their faith, and the separation of church and state is disappearing while, we're becoming a theocracy right in front of our very eyes. And it was absolutely the whole point of this country to have a separation of church and state.
Yeah, and people get mad about that too when you talk about that, because they don't understand that the proper meaning of that. They don't realize that there was a reason why our forefathers said that there needed to be that freedom of religion, for religion, of whatever you want to practice or you don't want to practice is basically your choice. It's not supposed to be shoved down anybody's throat. And now it just feels like we have this extremist SCOTUS that's just basically doing whatever they can to appeal to just one religion, because they're just appealing to one religion, and we all know that. That's just fact. And they're continuing to push this agenda that does not really work for everybody, and there's no need for this. I don't understand why this. But then again, they've been setting this up for 40 years, 50
Absolutely.
years. It's not been something that just happened overnight. This has been their goal for a while, and we've known this. We've just kind of set back on it, and then we're like, oh yeah, this will never happen, and now here we are.
And that's why we can't do that anymore. We are, this 2022 election, I know we've heard that over and over again. It's like, oh, this is the most important election ever because of this or that. And so everyone comes out to vote. And we did elect, Biden, we did elect the Congress and the Senate. But because we have these, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, who refuse to move on the filibuster. And so we're sitting here feeling like, or we won, but we still feel like we're losing. And so we need to bring enough Democrats and enough people that are on the side of holding people accountable and actually following the laws. There's so many laws that were broken throughout the entire Trump administration. He was never held accountable for anything. And even before that, with what happened in the Bush administration and all the way back to Nixon. And we see that pattern, and it's just continuing on. And if we don't do something about what's happened now when we have a blatant insurrection, the rule of law is gone, and this experiment is over. I mean, to be blunt.
Yeah, no, and it's getting crazier and crazier. I mean, as you've seen with what's been going on with the January 6th, the committee that's been investigating the January 6th stuff, and as we see more and more come out, we know very well that the other side is not even talking about it because they're ignoring the facts. And the facts are that he committed a lot of crimes that day, a lot. And I'm sorry, but even the Secret Service kind of protected his butt with not taking him up to the Capitol the way he wanted to, because if he would have gone up there, he definitely would have been committing a lot more crimes. So, so let's talk about that a little bit, because we know that's one of the bigger issues that we have here in the state of Florida. We were actually, I believe we had the most people get charged with part of that insurrection. And
From Brevard County.
And a lot of them, connected as either Proud Boys or Oath Keepers or Three Percenters or any of those hate groups that we all very well know. How do we deal with these people over here? Danielle, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think one of the ways is not having a congressperson that actually suborns the insurrection by, he joined the lawsuit with Texas to discount the votes in Georgia and Pennsylvania and 2 other states. And he's still endorsed by Trump. It's all over his website. He also voted not to count the votes for the final election after they came back after the insurrection that night. He was one of the 147 Congress people that voted not to approve the election. So having your congressperson be on board with the big lie is not a good thing. And that feeds into those people's beliefs. So we definitely need to fire Bill Posey and make sure that the representation that is for this district is not supporting that.
Got it. Aramis, what are your thoughts on the 14th Amendment being able to be used on some of these folk that, did this, the 147 Congress people that basically pulled a treasonous move on us?
I think it's necessary. We have to use the rule of law in order to maintain our democracy. We cannot decide that it applies to some depending on the demographic, while it doesn't apply to others depending on the degree of power they have. Similar to what Danelle said, our current Attorney General signed on to the brief ready to overturn the election that was consistent with the people. The job of the Attorney General is to be the voice of the people, not fight against the people. And when the will of the people has spoken and we've legitimately chosen a president, not by a little bit, but by a significant amount of votes, we don't decide that our buddy didn't get elected. So we are going to create a high degree of disinformation, which is much different than misinformation, but disinformation, and push this agenda that is inconsistent with the will of the people. We have to remember that this country does live on the will of the people. No matter whether you want to argue what kind of democracy, democratic republic, whatever, the bottom line is the voice of the people is what we should be having rule this country. So when it comes to the insurrection, I don't think the investigations should be done. I think since the state of Florida has been tipped off, we need to find out who assisted those individuals in getting to Washington, who knew that they were there, who turned silent. Were there any who funded? Were there any government actors who okayed it and gave them a green light that they would not be prosecuted? Whatever it is, I don't think that the investigation is complete on behalf of Floridians because of how many individuals have been associated with this state. That means that we're now following into our election. And if we are willing to turn over the greatest election for the United States of America, how much more willing are we to engage in that in the state of Florida right here at home? So we've got to be vigilant. That's my commitment, to be vigilant. And we need to make certain we continue the investigation and continue to dig deeper.
That's awesome.
Well, and we have, Proud Boys in Miami-Dade, right, that are on the Republican Executive Committee in Miami-Dade, like right now, or that are running for positions. And the Republican Party's message on that is, well, we have a difference of opinion. Well, I don't think that's a difference of opinion. And so.
No, it's definitely not a difference of opinion.
Yeah, if we can't get the Republicans to hold themselves accountable, then the Democrats or another avenue needs to do that, even in Congress, where we have a majority in Congress and we have these people sitting in Congress that gave tours of the Capitol the day before January 6th. And, we're sitting around waiting for the Republicans to police themselves. Well, that's not going to happen. And until the Democrats step up and say, we have the majority and these people cannot sit here with us, then we need to we're not going to get anywhere with that.
And you know, the one thing that, I mean, I'm a proud Democrat. I announce it. I say that I am, but this is way beyond Republican versus Democrat. This is freedom versus dictatorship. This
Exactly.
is literally safety versus a lack of safety. This is, you know, chaos versus law and order. And that's a good thing because we're at the, you know, the tail end of it. You know, you think about our democracy, it's on life support. And if we continue to put people in power who aren't willing to protect it or either deny the existence of the threat, then it's going to continue to go on. So we have to continue to represent the parties that we represent, but we have to be American first.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's the thing that bothers me. You know, these guys, or the other side basically, is calling for civil war and death to fellow Americans, not realizing what's going on. And it's so interesting to me that, you know, they talk about being all American patriots, but here they are talking about killing fellow Americans just because we disagree politically, and that to me is terrible.
I said this in history books. What is a civil war? Explain that to me. Like the words together make us, it's the beginning. And that's how we started this in this country, by naming things. Like now we want to rename slavery to something that it wasn't. And then we actually have put in the books for our kids to learn that there was a civil war. Ask the people who died whether or not it was civil. Ask the family members who are missing, was it civil? When you're using a threat of death, there's nothing civil about it. You have got to have civility behind the level of civil. So a war is a war. We don't have a civil war because it's in America. A war is a war. And when you have an enemy to the people, then that's not civil.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, it's not. No, I agree.
Yeah.
But it's basically just dumb because, you know, it's one side of nationalism versus a side who believes in the American dream of, you know, bringing everybody. We're America. We were supposed to be the takers of everybody's who didn't feel like they belonged to somewhere else, and we were their home. So we're no longer that. It's interesting because they're attacking everybody. I mean, they're attacking Mickey Mouse, they're attacking Black, Brown, they're attacking women, they're attacking LGBTQ.
Anything that doesn't agree with what they think is bad now.
And the worst part about it is they don't get that, like, once they knock off everyone else, that's when the two have to decide which one is going to survive. Like, no one is safe with this mentality.
No. And it's sad because, you know, they talk about freedom and that they're fighting for freedom, but for who? I mean,
For rich people, for the greedy.
Yeah,
you know?
that's exactly it. It's for these rich, greedy people who have paid for it, and then the people who think that they're part of that club. And half of them don't realize that they're not
part of the club.
They're not even welcome to the club. They don't even realize that they're not welcome. The only reason they keep them around is just to have them be a token. But that's not really any other reason why they want it around. It's just, you know, so they could turn and be like, oh, no, look, we got friends. Come on.
And that's why I try to remind people, and I say it, and it makes people uncomfortable, but we have to remember the dark past and the roots of this country. The fact that all of us from different areas and different backgrounds can be on this podcast, having a level of unity and great connection, tells you how great we have become, how far we've come, and the potential that we have. But that does not erase the history that historically none of us would even be connected in any kind of way. So as you're talking about the people who don't fit in with those who want to have power, they are being used to continue to divide and take us back. So when people say, you know, make America great again, all of that, it's only great for those who were included. And that doesn't include women, that doesn't include minorities, that doesn't include poor people, that doesn't include anyone but rich white men. And that's the issue that we're having, is that type of conversation really doesn't include people, but we've tapped into their hate for women, their hate for Black and brown people, their hate for immigrants, their hate for the LGBT, and they want to, you know, exploit that in order to promote them. And as soon as they get there, they'll drop them off too.
Well, right, because that if they were not able to divide us somehow, then all of us could see what they're doing and how they're the ones that are, you know, basically robbing us blind. You know, the whole thing of, oh, it's all the takers at the bottom are the takers. Well, the takers are at the top, and corporate welfare, and they don't pay taxes, and they don't They get to choose how their money, oh, well, I created this philanthropic thing and I'm giving money to this. Well, you and I don't get to choose where our tax dollars go.
Nope.
Right.
Not at all.
And so we're just been so blinded to what's really happening. I got into a conversation one time with someone in my family and we were, doing the chat and I said, and they were complaining about welfare. And I said, well, without welfare, I wouldn't be where I am today. I said, what about corporate welfare? And they're like, well, I don't know that much about corporate welfare. Well, maybe you better learn something about corporate welfare,
I'm like, it takes a hell of a lot more money to fund corporate welfare than it does to fund the actual welfare program that actually feeds people, needy people.
Absolutely.
I try to use the example of a Walmart worker, right? Who only can can only shop at Walmart, right? Like you're not paying them enough. Some of them will qualify for welfare depending on their family makeup. And then they're being talked about because the job that they have that makes a multi-million-dollar company succeed, and they're working, they're the ground, they're the employees, and they can't make enough to survive. But for their work, we wouldn't have the billionaires who get all the tax cuts and everything. The imbalance is so blatant when you look at structures like that.
Yes. And it kills me because they'll be like, oh, well, these people are the job makers, the job creators, and this and that. And I'm like, I'm a small business owner. I don't agree with that. I'm like, you guys are actually
they're the welfare makers.
Yeah, they hurt people more than anything. And it's
they use the federal government. We are all paying for Walmart's workers. We're paying in so that they can get welfare, so that Walmart, the Waltons, can be billionaires.
And that's what kills me, because if you want to start a business, you got to invest all this money. You don't get no government help. You don't get nothing like that. Meanwhile, these guys walk in and they'll be like, yeah, no, I want 3 years free this. I get this much discount and taxes and yeah, whatever. Like they seriously don't. Like I know in New York what Alexandria Ocasio was doing, that everybody was so mad, like, oh, she ruined it for us. And then a few months later, they still came in with their tail between their legs, like, okay, we'll still come in. Like, come on, like, if they want to go in there, they got to pay just like any other company, corporation has to do. It just doesn't make any sense that these people constantly are just figuring ways out on how to rob the piggy bank. And that's the other thing too with some of these corporations around the area that are diving into these government contracts and making friends with these politicians so that way they could have their elbows greased and that way they can make more money. And like, I bet you if we go through these contracts that the state and federal government has with all these contractors, I bet you we could find a lot of discrepancies and a lot of questions would be raised on why they're getting paid so much money, because some people should not be getting paid the millions of dollars they're getting paid from the government. It's like, what are you doing? So, so as candidates, I know we always have busy schedules. I know Aramis has to take off. I guess you're heading to Miami today. I will be heading there tomorrow. I have my FIU Canadelic. I get to talk about marijuana thingy. But what do you have? Where are you going to be, huh?
You know what? It's really sad where I'm going. There is an organization called Parents of Murdered Children.
Woo!
Oh, no.
Right. And it's down in Miami, and I'm their keynote, as a former prosecutor, as a person who has represented families of deceased children and some still unsolved. That's where I'm headed. So, a couple other meetings down there, but that's the lead purpose. That's the anchor.
Well, make sure you enjoy some good food while you're down there. I plan on it. I plan on looking forward to some. Funny enough, I'm like, ooh, I'm looking forward to some pizza from South Beach.
It's funny.
I'm like, because I lived in Miami Beach, from 2007 to like 2014. Yeah, wow. Okay, so I missed the food a little bit. I'm like, I don't have that up here in Central Florida. The good Cuban food, the good Colombian stuff, and of course, the pizza.
I was like, did you say Colombia? And then it was funny.
It's just the funny stuff. So I know you got to take off. I'll let you go. Danielle and I are going to talk about a little Roe v. Wade stuff, something that's more up her alley. But I know if I start talking to you on that one, you're never going to leave. So
I'm never leaving. I will totally miss a flight and this 1:00 meeting. So my bad.
I will kick you out before that happens.
Safe travel.
All right. Thank you. See you guys later.
Thank you.
Later.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Aramis, for joining us. So, Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
Well, thank you for taking over while I actually disappeared for a few moments over there. That
No
sucked.
problem. I'm like, it's still ticking. We better just keep talking.
Sweet. I was like, oh no, it all shut off. So, Roe v. Wade, what do we got going on? What do we do to fix this mess? I'm like, I don't even know what to say, and I really do hope that it is something that's going to get people to come out and vote because, gosh, Clarence Thomas sucks, maybe.
Yeah.
And he really does, and him and his Federalist Society agenda is really just it's terrible. It's definitely not something that we need. Sorry about that. It's definitely not something that we need right now in the country. Their agenda is basically pushing every right wing wet dream possible through, and they're doing it because they know they have that advantage where basically a minority, an extreme minority, has taken over our Supreme Court and now are making decisions for the masses, which we know very well the masses don't agree with their nonsense.
Yeah.
So.
And that's the worst part, right? Is we know that more than 70% of people think that we should have access to safe legal abortion and obviously privacy rights over our own body. And the thing with Roe versus Wade is that it's not just about abortion. It's about so much more. And our privacy is at stake, even our digital privacy. We don't know how far they'll go down that rabbit hole because they've said, privacy isn't in the Constitution. Well, to me, the fact that we're supposed to have liberty would include privacy. So, I don't know how well their argument stands on the fact that there's no privacy in the actual Constitution. But, we're going to see, and we're seeing it already with the case in Ohio where the 10-year-old girl was raped and they had to take her to Indiana to get an abortion. A 10-year-old's body cannot support a safe pregnancy. It's not safe for her. It's not safe for the fetus. And we need to, we need to be protecting these people. And the idea that if we let Republicans get elected and take over in November, they've already got the stuff written on the paper that they are planning to do a nationwide abortion ban. Yep. And as a childbirth educator and a doula, when I was working with families in Washington State, we already had a shortage of OBGYNs. And I know that across the country, we have a shortage of OBGYNs. And we also have states like Mississippi and I believe Arkansas that don't allow midwives to practice outside of the hospital or CNMs and things like that. So we have other providers that in some states can attend births, but in other states, they're not allowed to attend births. And so we'll have people that are not going into the field, people that will leave the field when we already have a shortage. And we have a whole system of Catholic hospitals that already won't treat people for certain things based on their religion. So if you imagine that as the nationwide situation, women are in grave danger.
They are, and it really sucks because, like I said, I have two young girls that are just starting this journey. One's 7 and the other one is 9, and I mean, my 9-year-old is just 1 year away from that 10-year-old that just got raped, and it was raped by a family member, if I'm correct.
And a lot of them are. That's where a lot of that comes from. And when we look at these other laws too, like in Tennessee, where they're trying to, completely erase marriage age, and part of that is to cover up the situation where if a family member or someone from the, group that they're in or something, rapes someone and gets them pregnant, well, we'll just marry them off, and then that makes it okay. That's
BS. Seriously, that's exactly what that is. It makes me wonder because how they're always claiming, protect the children. So what the F? Why are you not protecting the child in this situation? She comes first before anybody else, and the asshole that raped her should be in jail. How are we not handling this? Sorry about
right. And imagine, and I don't remember what state it was in, but imagine where they're not even, oh dang it, my husband just came by in the Handmaid's Tale outfit and I lost track of what I was saying. We've been protesting. We actually went to Washington, D.C. over Memorial Day weekend to protest in front of the Supreme Court as well as the White House, kind of hoping that at least some of the language would be stripped out of the draft decision because some of it was really, really dangerous, which they left it all intact. So that was really disappointing, but that was kind of the point that we made. But since the actual thing came down, we've been at like 3 different marches here in the local area. And I will say that the turnout has been inspiring, and there's been a lot of young people. And I'm speaking to you young people. We really need all of you to turn out, to register, to vote, and to make sure that you stand up for yourselves, because you're the future. It's your destiny. My daughters are 26 and 27. And so
they're deep into it now. But people like Addison over there who, young people who are participating, we need to see more of that. I like to see way more of that. We need our children to understand that government is really just messed up right now and needs to be rescued, and it's going to take a few cycles to be rescued if we want to do this right. And we just need to stand our ground and really fight. These people are doing everything to fight against this. I mean, like I said, they've basically dehumanized us, made us into demons, baby eaters, all these things that basically dehumanize us, so that way they could attack us with no remorse. And really, at the end of the day, I'm like, you people call yourself Christian people, but what is so Christian about what you're doing here to me or to some of my other candidates, or what you're saying about these people? Like, why does it go, like, what possessed, like, what book did you read? Because I swear that book talks about loving like the most of unacceptable people, when back then they're talking about the leopards, and they're, and he's like, I like, Jesus would walk in there and be like, hey, what's up, guys, let's hang out. He treated them like normal human beings, and they loved them. So, like, what is with the hypocrisy? Why is it that they go from let's love people and let's love life to, oh, screw the living and let's protect something that's not even on this planet? Meanwhile, in the Bible itself, it tells you that you have to take your first breath in order to be considered alive, type of thing. So if you're a small fetus like that, and I'm sorry, I know they're like, oh, but when you hear a heartbeat, no, that's not even a heartbeat. It's something that somebody decided to come up with that says, like, oh, this electrical charge kind of sounds like a heartbeat, and we're going to make this be the heartbeat. A heart does not form until way later on, where you actually see a physical heart with valves and all these things. So if you were to take out a fetus at 5 weeks, I'm sorry, that's just going to be mush on the table and it's not going to come to life. So I don't understand why these people, even at 16 weeks, think that that's going to be plausible baby. That just doesn't make any sense.
And we're talking about even ectopic pregnancies where they're in the fallopian tubes and it's not viable at all.
Nope.
And people, I've heard people saying like, well, we'll just transfer it, which is completely scientifically impossible.
Well, I believe they got somebody in trouble for that right now, didn't they? In one of the states, they're trying to try 2 women for that had emergency, like in the last trimester too. The one person had lost a child. She didn't even realize she was pregnant, and she went to go take a poop, and next thing she knows, she gave birth.
Right. Well, that's a stillbirth. An ectopic pregnancy is a completely different thing. But I just want to make sure that we're not, conflating things. But yeah, I mean, if women are going to be charged with a crime for having a stillbirth or a miscarriage, a third of women have a miscarriage before they even know they're pregnant. And now with our technology of these early detection pregnancy tests, I mean, people know way sooner than they ever would have known in the past.
But still not quick enough like that for them to even say, oh, we need a 4-week or 5-week abortion.
Oh, right. Because if you haven't missed your period, then you're not even thinking about that you might be pregnant. So, and that's already 4 weeks in, right? So,
but even then it's like, how do I say, like, most people don't think about that exactly like you said until they miss their period. But like, if you got a request to go get this abortion done, don't they give you like a time period that you got to wait? So wouldn't you fall already out of that timeline? And like, if
it depends on the state. It depends on, the different rules. And that's kind of confusing because every state has different laws. And then, when we have states that are saying for a woman, she has to go back and then have a vaginal wand stuck upside her so that she can, make sure that she wants to do this and then come back 24 hours later. All of those are just delaying tactics to try to talk somebody out of it. And a lot of the pregnancy crisis centers that are supposed to be helping women are really, religious organizations keeping them pregnant until they can't have an abortion, and then kind of kicking them to the curb, like, you're done, we need to help the next person. And so once they have the baby, they have no support. And if we as a country were really pro-life and we really wanted to make sure that families were safe and happy and healthy, we would do all of the preventative things that we need to do. We would have actual sex education that taught people what they need to know. We would provide contraception. We would provide prenatal care, prenatal vitamins, and all of these things, if they're going to mandate that people carry a pregnancy, need to be mandated too then. And child support from embryo stage.
And even then, the sexual education, because I just heard a complaint from my wife about something she heard recently around here locally, but what they're teaching them is not proper either. It doesn't seem like it. You're teaching fifth graders about periods, but you're teaching the boys about how to use their thing in the process of impregnating girls, instead of teaching them how to not do that. Like how to protect yourself should be the most at that age, or just learning to understand yourself, but not teaching them automatically like, hey, this is what you need to do.
That again, it goes to the state, right? So whatever the state laws are for every state in the country.
But it just seems interesting to me, like really, like you guys are pushing this whole thing about you don't want sex ed, but then like you're throwing them this really weird version of it where they need to do more of a scientific approach. Like I swear I had more of that scientific approach back home, when I was growing up, and we went through that sex ed in 9th grade as well too, which was pretty informative. I don't know if anybody in my class paid attention, but that's on them. I swear at one point, I don't know, it's just I don't get why they really try to punish women for this. Is not even cool. There's no reason to punish women. Women should be allowed to have sex just as much as men for pleasure versus for procreating. Because I'm sorry, as men, and I know half of these Republican men, they think the same way as any other normal man. They're not just bumping uglies to procreate, okay? They're doing this because they want pleasure. They're not doing it for, hey, I need to knock up my wife again because I need another kid. So if we're getting to that point, then why are we so stressed about having women be pregnant when if you want pleasure, you don't want her to be pregnant? It just doesn't make any sense to me in that sense.
Well, it's never really made sense because it's if you look at that version of, we want the pure woman that's a virgin, but we want to have sex all the time. So that has never lined up. Yeah.
Thank you, Susan, for the laugh.
And
which, by the way, I agree they should legalize that, by the way, so that way we could actually get some of these guys to calm down too. But yes, Danielle, sorry. No,
that's okay.
I had to throw you off on that one. But yes, I mean, look, these guys, no matter what, when they have the money, they could take their wives wherever, or whoever it is that got pregnant, wherever they want. So this really affects a lot of the poorer folk. And
well, it's power and control too, because if women are pregnant, then they're not in the workforce. And if women are pregnant, they're not in college. And if women are pregnant, they're not doing all these other things. And I think in the same way that, kind of the old white guy club has seen, Black and brown and, Hispanic and LGBTQ people and all these people like rising up and moving into positions of power and, women being a higher percentage of people that are going into higher education, taking over in the boardroom and things like that they don't want that. And so what better way than to keep women back in the kitchen and barefoot and pregnant, and to keep them out of politics too, because and we need a lot more women in politics. We're more than 51% of the country, and we need representation.
No, we need a good mix of people. We need a mix of everybody. We need a mix of minorities that know how to do everything. Not just women, but Black, brown, indigenous.
Absolutely.
Thankfully I check off 2 boxes. I get the indigenous and I get the Latino thing. So we need more people that represent the people, not just this one particular group. And that's really what's been hurting us. But what's interesting to me is how you do have women on that side that are solely focused on that whole view of the patriarchy, where they don't mind being in, pregnant and home and doing all these things. And
it's the way they were raised.
But wait. But I got one of the best ones has to be, did you hear what happened with Kelly Stargell and her daughter?
No.
Okay, so Kelly Stargell, if you don't know, is one of our senators here in Florida, and she's probably one of the more ultra religious people in the whole crew. Like, she's been the one pushing the abortion bans, and she's been pushing for, continued push of Christianity in the schools. And I know they have like a charter school system, her and her husband, so they've pushed for money to go into charter schools and all this stuff. So she's one of these people that's always talked about being a good Christian and all this and that. Meanwhile, her daughter recently came out on TikTok and a few other places basically saying, do not vote for my mom. My mom's an evil person. She didn't even feed me and didn't even do all these things because she's been too busy trying to be a power-hungry politician, basically.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, her daughter's TikTok is awesome. And her daughter's been great. She's not taking sides on the politics. All she's complaining about is the fact that her mom's an evil person and has only been focused on, politics and power. And it's so interesting because it's just like, this person talks and walks this talk like about her being this holy roller, but meanwhile, no, you're not. You're just as evil as anybody else. And for you to do that to a child the way that you do is terrible. And I mean,
how many times have we seen
her daughter is LGBTQ as well too. So imagine that. So she shunned his daughter. She doesn't feed her. Like, she basically abused her. And I'm like, why is Kelly Stargell not getting in trouble for child abuse? This child is telling us that she got abused by her mom, but because she's a politician, she's going to get away from it. Like, no. Something should be done there. Somebody should technically arrest Kelly Stargell and her husband for child abuse, and there should be some sort of investigation into that. She should not be running for Congress. She shouldn't be running for any sort of political office, with that being said. So,
and how many, well, I guess when you have the former president of the United States credibly accused of, assaulting more than 20 women, and a Supreme Court justice who now sits on the bench credibly accused of assaulting women, it becomes the point where, people are running for office just to get away with crimes. It feels like it's like, oh, now I'm untouchable. I mean, look at Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham's trying to say that he doesn't have to meet the subpoena from Fani Willis in Georgia because he's the senator. Well, that's not how the law works. We have to hold people accountable up and down the ballot, up and down government. And yeah, this can't go on.
No, it can't. All right. Well, it's starting to get to the end of our lunch hour here soon. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to let people know who you are, what it is that you're doing, what you're running for, and why they should support you and where they could donate. So I will let you take it from here. All right.
Well, as Ryan has mentioned, I am Danelle Dodge, and I'm running for Florida's 8th Congressional District. I am running against Bill Posey. And one of the things that I think is super important for us to do in our district is to improve constituent services. And we really need to bring the money back here. Bill Posey has bragged that he returned $1 million of his office budget to the Treasury. And just think about what we could do here in Brevard and Indian River counties with that kind of money to support our community through grant advising, through veteran support, through educational scholarships, having a paralegal that can help answer people's questions about the tenant landlord laws or worker discrimination. I'm also a big supporter of unions, and I think that it's really important. I'm very excited about the Starbucks and the Amazon workers and our youth starting to understand the importance of representation at the table. The companies have all these big lawyers. We don't have those kind of lawyers. So all we have is that the union to help us to be able to bring our needs and what we want to the table when it comes to workers. Let's see.
So what is your website? Where can they donate?
My website is votedodge.com.
Like the car?
And yep. And all of my social media handles are @VoteDodge, and we are on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. And so I would ask you to go ahead and follow me, come and check it out. One of the things I will say is that I'm the only candidate in this race that is for term limits. I have signed a term limits pledge. And my primary opponent is running on the fact that she is a centrist, moderate Democrat. And I really feel that we need someone that really gets down onto the democratic values and wants to stand up and understand that we can't negotiate if they're not doing it in good faith, and that we need to have our seat at the table, and we need to take our seat at the table and use it to our advantage and for the people, and that we can't bridge the divide or negotiate human dignity, civil rights, or anything like that, that we have to stand up, that people are more important than money and politics.
Well, thank you, Danelle, for an awesome lunchtime conversation.
Thank you, Ryan.
Aramis was also great. Wish she was here for the closing, but we will talk about Aramis as well furthermore. We look forward to really flipping the cabinet blue, making sure that Florida gets back on track and we end this fascist regime that we have going on right now. Thank you for joining me today. We look forward to our Monday show, and Sundays we're going to try to do our Spanish show again. We will be looking for our guest on Spanish, so that's going to be fun. But thank you again, everybody. It's been a wonderful lunch. If anybody wants to donate to the campaign, please feel free to vote to visit donate.ryanforflorida.com. If you're on Facebook, yeah, I know, and that's the other one for votedodge.com. And
you have a primary, Ryan? You don't, right?
I do actually.
Oh,
I have
you do?
a primary. Yes, they threw two people in last minute to come at me. So
okay, so August 23rd is the primary, everyone.
Yep. I need you all to vote. I need you all to register to vote. If you're not registered yet, you have until July 25th.
25th, yep.
Yep. I want to make sure that you're all registered to vote because I need your vote. I need to make sure that you're voting for me this November. I mean, this August 1st.
August and November.
And then November, because November's the big one. Oof.
Yes.
But yes, we need to make sure that we're on that ballot for November. So I need you to vote for me on August 23rd. Again, thank you for joining in, and I hope you had a wonderful lunch. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Cheers.